Good morning. I would like to call this meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors for January 15th, 2021 to order. And Supervisor Claire, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Dear Father, guide us through our daily living and help us to be kind, thoughtful, and compassionate servants. Many thanks to the many volunteers who give of themselves endlessly. Please protect them. As we enter into 2021, let's pray for peace and purpose for all. In your name, amen.
Thank you. Dave, would you lead us in the pledge and fire notice, please?
Please rise to the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In case of fire or other emergency, there are 3 exits through, there, and there. In case of such emergency, please proceed to the nearest exit, find the nearest stairway, clear the building, and get as far away from the building as you can so rescue squads and emergency squads can do their job. If you need assistance in getting out of the building, please ask for help. Please silence your cell phones for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor O'Brien. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hankey.
Here.
Mrs. Sedler.
Here.
Mr. Ferguson.
Here.
He's here.
Mr. Shaw.
He's on mute, but he shows up that he's here.
Okay. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Losaw.
Here.
Mr. Hicks.
Here.
Mr. Ward.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Taft.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Skelly.
Here.
Mr. Hogan.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Clary.
Here.
Mr. Griffith.
Here.
Mr. Roselle.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Okay. Condensed minutes. The condensed minutes from December 10th and 18th, 2020 and the January 4th, 2021 meetings are accepted as mailed unless there are any additions or corrections. Do we have any additions or corrections? Seeing none, those are approved. Communications.
For communication, we received correspondence from the town of Whitehall and Whitehall Volunteer Fire Company regarding a workers' compensation case, retirement letter from Patricia Hunt, Public Health Director, and an email from a town of Fort Edward resident regarding the 2020 election integrity and supporting a peaceful transition of power. That's all I have for communications.
Very good, thank you. A COVID-19 update. Tim Hardy, please.
Morning, everybody. Just attach that as a PDF for those of you that are on the meeting remotely. Go ahead and share my screen. All right, we can run through the update here real quick. So the county's COVID-19 response continues as is. WashingtonCountyNY.gov/coronavirus is where our daily updates are, which includes statistics, current information on our county operations and departments, the e-newsletter, which goes out every day, and the links to the latest up-to-date information from the CDC and New York State Department of Health. Current public health operations, just a couple updates on that. They are continuing their 7-day-a-week staffing. We are continuing to be at the high point of this as of right now. Additional staff has been hired and brought in. Both Patty and KJ and their team and Tina over there are working very hard to make sure that they have all the resources that they need there to continue operating, and they've been doing an amazing job. They're also utilizing allocated support staff from a couple other departments who have offered to loan assistance over there, which has been social services, office for the aging, veterans, and there may be a couple other ones in there as well that have been helping out. So they very much appreciate the help. It's been much needed over there. Continuing increases that we're seeing cases in schools. Obviously, there's constant changes in the schools back and forth with virtual, depending on some of the districts. They are doing an amazing job trying to navigate this. It's very difficult trying to keep the kids in school and keep everything operating, but they're doing as best they can. And really got to say thank you to the schools and the teachers that are working through this and the parents at home. I know it's very difficult. And then the biggest part of things that are turning up now for us, vaccine preparation and pod planning or point of dispensing planning. So that's continuing. Just the active response case data as of last night. So persons under monitoring last night was 780. We're at 260 active positives. Those are people in our communities that are actively isolated right now and have tested positive and are still in their monitoring period under public health. And our hospitalization number is at 7 today. That's fluctuated throughout the last couple of weeks. I believe the high we hit was 10 over the last couple of days. So those numbers have been going up and down, but they're significantly higher than what we're used to in the past. This is the graph that's going to show you our persons under monitoring, our COVID-19 positives, our hospitalizations, and our deaths. And that's active statistics by date. And we started tracking that back in May. This was the graph that we talked about previously that Mr. Half asked for. So you could see on those dates what the active numbers were, not the historical data that continued to grow throughout the pandemic. So that will give you an active snapshot of what it looked like each day. And those days are Fridays if you're looking at them. And then this is the historical data that started since day one, which tracks the persons under monitoring, which you see fluctuate. The COVID-19 positives, which just continue to grow. Those are the ones that will never go down on this chart. The hospitalizations, which fluctuate by the day, and then the deaths. Just a couple updates on vaccination. So that, as you know, earlier this week or late last week, the governor announced that vaccination was open to the categories of 1A, which included the hands-on healthcare, and 1B, which is a lot of essential employees, and now population over 65. Started out as over 75. That changed midweek and went to over 65. Began on January 11th, which was Monday earlier this week. The information is still forthcoming and changing very quickly, and that the distribution of vaccine to us and the other points is being controlled and managed by the state. So our public health folks are ready for their pod planning. They've been doing that all along. They've done an amazing job with that. We're just waiting some vaccine. As of right now, supply is very low. There's a lot of counties that if they've received anything, it's been very small. We're in that boat. So hopefully within the next, I don't even want to put a time period on it. We do have requests into the state. We're just awaiting to get vaccine. As soon as we do get vaccine, we'll be opening up to start distribution to the remainder of the 1As and into the 1Bs. But even as of right now, working with the hospital and the regional hub, we've been able to vaccinate the majority of the 1As. So the EMS, the healthcare providers, those kind of things. We do have some still left, and then into the 1Bs, the first responders, there's very few that have been able to get vaccinated as of yet, outside of active riding ambulance folks and your fire first responders that do hands-on medical. So they are in that list along with everything else that you've seen in there, teachers, and the other list of essential personnel. So it's a big list. The governor does estimate we're looking 14 to 16 weeks to be able to vaccinate that entire eligible population. And then obviously we have a lot longer to go after that once that's complete. So the time frame obviously is nothing that's within our control. So for the questions that we're getting of people who want to be vaccinated and what they can do, the state developed that Am I Eligible tool, which is on the state website. The link is there on the slide, but we'll publish that again afterwards. And all this information, we're putting it out there, daily update, it's on the website. They can go through that tool. It determines whether they're eligible based on the criteria that they put in, and then gives them some options. So as of right now, originally it started out with, it gave you the state options, and now that the state is opened or is opening the mass vaccination centers around the state that the governor has opened, now it's only listing those right now. The counties are back off there. But hopefully once the pods start to open in all the counties, we can get that listed so people don't have to go to multiple sources for information. But there they have the state call center, which is out there. That's the 833-NYS-4VAX. And we're encouraging people to check with your healthcare provider. If you don't have to call them, please don't. Certainly they're inundated with calls too. If you can, check their website. Most of them do have links published to their pods that are open or when they have supply, but they're also going through any supply they get very quickly. And then the pharmacies are being pushed very hard by the state to open up for that 65 and older population. So we're trying to get as many means out there as possible to be able to get people vaccinated. Supply is extremely short. You know, we're getting 300,000 doses statewide a week. So we don't control where that goes. You know, the state's controlling where that goes. and certainly, hopefully, that will grow in the future. But we will continually post updates every day on our coronavirus information site. And then for anybody who's looking for the latest information directly from the state, ny.gov/vaccine is the website for that. And certainly our team at Public Health obviously has been working extremely hard. They are still doing 7 days a week. Their cases are still as close to the height of this as they've been. So we very much appreciate everything they're doing on top of getting ready for vaccine and those kind of things. So last thing is just a couple of quick reminders with everything continuing to grow in our communities. Please stay home if you're not feeling well. Get tested if you feel as though you need to, or you feel different than normal. Be mindful of your activities. You're going to need that for contact tracing. When they do reach out to you, they're going to ask you where you've been and who you've been in close contact with. Avoid gatherings, wash your hands and mask up. Just a couple on county operations. We have seen some impacts again as of late to some of our departments having some transmission of COVID-19. And I will say, I think the departments are doing an amazing job within the department of trying to ensure people are as spread out as they can be, working with Buildings and Grounds, who's been amazing on trying to keep things clean so we can keep our buildings safe and healthy and keep operating for the public and our employees. So we very much appreciate everything everybody's doing, and hopefully we'll have some more information to be able to roll out on vaccine information soon.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
You got John Roselle.
John, I'm sorry.
I personally tried that New York State hotline, and I've tried it for like 4 different days, and that's a waste of time to try. I haven't done the computer thing yet. And another thing, we have several people that there's nothing we can do about it, but they don't go by the rules. One person was spoken to in the dollar store here in Whitehall saying that you don't look well. And she said, well, I got tested positive for COVID and I've got to come and get supplies. So, we can try our best, and if people don't understand what's going on or are lost about it, and I understand everybody's trying their best, but that's just a couple scenarios that have taken place right here in Whitehall in the last week. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And that's not, just so you know, Whitehall is not an isolated case on that. We have that going on in other towns as well. And there are means to help the people who are going to have to be left at home and quarantined to get their groceries that they can be delivered through Department of Health and Department of Social Services, etc. So we just have to keep putting the words on it. But thank you that you're not alone. Other towns are experiencing that as well. Let's skip a little bit here. I'm going to go to have 2 individuals that are here that wanted to speak to us today. Congressman Stefanik, did you want to chime in?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Hall. Thanks for the opportunity to connect with Washington County. I am currently driving back from DC. I'm in the passenger seat from DC back to the district for district work over the weekend. So appreciate your patience with the background noise here. I wanted to make a couple of statements. Number one, I want to publicly repeat and make clear that I fully condemn the violence that occurred at the U.S. Capitol last week. These were violent criminals who destroyed public property and caused significant loss of life in 2 Capitol police officers, one that was lost in the line of duty and another one who 2 days later was lost in the line of duty as well. We absolutely need to make sure that those individuals are prosecuted and that something like that never happens again. That was un-American. I also want to make clear that in this country, the American people have the constitutional right to peacefully protest. They do not have the constitutional right to commit violent acts targeting any individuals across this country. I know it has been incredibly frustrating for Americans from all walks of life to see those images on their TV screens, to see them in the local newspaper. And we are committed in the Congress to make sure that we have a safe and secure governing body in the People's House and that we have a safe and secure inauguration of President-elect Biden. I also wanted to provide an update to Washington County of the COVID relief bill that was passed in December at the very end of the year. There are important resources that will be flowing to communities across the district. Number one, New York State will be receiving about $4 billion in education funds for elementary and secondary education. Those will be allocated directly to the school districts. That money needs to be allocated before January 2022. So within this year, that's incredibly important as we talk to our educators and superintendents. In addition, our higher ed institutions, $1.4 billion will be directed to New York State higher ed institutions. Most notably for our local institutions, I announced $45 million of federal funds, specifically for SUNY Adirondack. $4.8 million I announced yesterday, and we are working with all of our education institutions to address what their needs are. We know how important they are. For infrastructure funds, New York will receive $400 million for New York State DOT infrastructure projects. We'll continue to work to make sure the North Country is strongly considered and delivering some of those funds locally as much as possible. On the vaccine issue, I know that one of the supervisors raised some of the challenges that New York State has in their implementation. At the federal level, we have put billions of dollars into the vaccine rollout distribution plan. Just in this last COVID relief bill in December, New York State received $1.6 billion for the vaccine distribution, as well as allocation and testing. I will continue to speak with our state elected officials and continue to speak out when I see issues, which we have seen significant issues with some of the decisions the governor has made that have really circumvented our county leadership who have worked so hard to put together plans for the vaccine distribution. In addition, the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program, that program is open again for businesses to apply, $325 billion available. Importantly, at the end of the year, one of the issues I heard from a lot of small businesses, they were concerned for those that took the PPP funding, whatever that was used for in terms of the payroll, utilities, rent, and there were certain requirements, they were no longer able to deduct that as they're filing their taxes. We fixed that. I really worked hard with our small business community to make sure that they were able to take those deductions on their taxes. And lastly, broadband. In December, I announced $99.8 million that New York is receiving through the Rural FCC Broadband Fund that we were not initially qualified for. New York had been not able to be considered. I was able to work with the FCC chair to get that done. And much of that investment will go throughout the North Country in New York's 21st District. Please don't hesitate to reach out to my office for any questions. For our supervisors, you know I'm only a phone call away. I know it's been a very challenging time right now. I am committed to continuing to work to deliver results to this district. So thank you, Sam, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Elise. Any questions for Congresswoman? Okay, thank you. Then going to move on really quick to Assemblyman Simpson. Matt.
Thank you, Chairman Hall. I want to say Happy New Year to all of you here in January. And here I'm in my office. We are working out all of our office policies and processes here with my new staff. We've had a busy week. We had a couple of sessions already in Albany. I am fortunately, I've received all my committee appointments. I am the ranker for the Social Services Committee. I am also on the Environmental Conservation Committee, the Local Governments Committee, and the Tourism and Arts and Sports Development Committee. So I've got a very large workload there, and I'm very happy. I've got great resources in Albany, and things are going very well. I caught some of the conversation that Supervisor Roselle was talking about with some of the confusion around the vaccinations in the state's portal and call number. That is most of the calls that are coming to my office. That is the reason why people are calling. There's a lot of confusion out there. I was on a call with the governor's office yesterday, and they are expanding those call centers. They've had a tremendous phone call load coming in there. There's about 7 million people that are eligible under this first 1A and 1B group. But the real issue that I'm very concerned about and we need to work on is, it ties into one of the issues in Washington County is the broadband. A lot of these seniors and a lot of people don't have access to these press releases and all the information that is being disseminated from the state. It seems like sometimes it's hourly or, it's just coming at us so quickly. And it's very confusing for a good portion of our population. So that's one of my key things that I'm working on right now is trying to come up with a way that we can communicate more efficiently and effectively with people, especially the seniors and the people that don't have access to, social media, Facebook, emails, and all that. I was encouraged that the governor prioritized broadband again in his state of the state. That is critical infrastructure. It is. It needs to be at the highest priority of the state. In instances of COVID or any other natural disaster, everybody is so reliant on this, and there's people that don't have it, and they have to have it. It is critically important for all of our constituents. So I'm going to continue to work on that, advocate for it, and try to have that remain as a top priority at the state. I do have a call center number. I don't know if it's the same number that Supervisor Roselle had been referring to, but the state said this is the one number that you want to encourage everybody to call, continue to call, even if it's busy or if they have issues. Right now, that is the best way to communicate, try to set up those appointments for vaccinations. And that will be expanding, so don't give up. It's 1-833-697-4829. And the one thing I really want to stress is if you have any issues, please reach out to us. We've been very, we've worked diligently on all these questions around COVID. I have some really good people here that we can weed through and hopefully help your residents get through this. And I came on late. I was on another meeting and I've got to rush to another meeting, but I just want to thank you all again. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you. And Chairman Hall, I appreciate the opportunity to log on.
Thank you for joining us, Matt. And does anyone have a quick question for the Assemblyman?
I do.
Yes, John. Supervisor Roselle.
That is the number I was using, trying to get contact.
Yeah,
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, don't give up. They are aware of the overload of the phones and the confusion, but just continue to call that number. I know that there isn't enough vaccines right now for the load. We get about 300,000 a week, 300 vaccinations. It's a very complicated rollout of the vaccinations, especially with needing a second vaccination within 3 weeks. But the state stressed, this number will expand availability. They're going to expand the call centers. They're aware of it, and they're working on the infrastructure to get these vaccines out as quickly as possible as they come in and as they increase.
Thank
But
you,
please
Matt.
don't
Any other
hesitate to
questions?
call me either. If you have any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Supervisor Ferguson.
Yes, Matt. I'm not understanding why Usenet would be considered a broadband when it absolutely does not work when you're trying to use it. I don't think broadband and Usenet. I don't think broadband should be awarding Usenet a broadband service.
I couldn't agree with you more. I was a supervisor of the town of Horicon, and that's what we were awarded. And it is not sufficient to do business or do anything, especially with the terrain in the town of Horicon with mountains and all sorts of obstacles. There are other technologies, and it's an issue that I've worked with others for a number of years at trying to understand. You know, it's not one technology. It's going to be a combination of technologies that are out there. We just have to, you know, it's going to take dollars, and the state, I'm very thankful that they're making it a priority, and we're going to get there. You know, the governor said that 98% of the people in New York State are connected, and it's the 2%. Well, my thing is, it's a much greater percentage in our district because of the population. Overall, the state, it sounds great, 2% at this time don't have access, but in our area, this district, it's much greater than 2%. And so we and Senator Steck, Congresswoman Stefanik, we need to continue to work together and try to connect all the dots, bring more funding in. I'm very thankful to hear that the federal, you know, it's a priority for our Congresswoman, and there is funding coming here. But no, I agree. HughesNet is not the solution.
So let's go with Supervisor Hack.
Good morning, Matt. I know people do not like HughesNet, but I don't think we should malign all satellites just because of HughesNet. SpaceX launching satellites all the time. It's designed to serve the underserved rural areas north of 45 degrees latitude. I'm about 43 and it's 60 miles per degree. So we're on the fringe, but they're increasing their coverage southward a little bit. And I'm wondering if you have any input into SpaceX satellites. I understand that it's by invitation to join right now, but maybe as a block for the North Country, we could be considered, because I think people that are dissatisfied with HughesNet may be very happy with SpaceX.
No, I agree, and that's that's what I meant by different technologies. There's gonna, you know, I also think it's tied to cellular in some areas. You know, some of the different technologies, whether it's microwave or whatever, that will still provide that access that people can, you know, connect to telehealth options, which is a priority of the state. So it's any and all technologies. I just know from people in my community, when they tried HughesNet, it didn't work for their applications, their desired applications. And it was terrain, you know, it was impacted by the terrain with having not good views and positioning, I would assume. But SpaceX could definitely be an option.
Well, I think if you go to HughesNet, you have to have a view of the southwest sky. But I think SpaceX is more northerly than that. So it might be pointing in an entirely different direction. But I'm wondering if your office or somebody could reach out to SpaceX, Mr. Musk, and see what could be done, because we really, the North Country really needs this.
Yeah, we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Clary.
Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you.
I am worried about the rural healthcare and the rollout of the vaccine. Having worked and stayed on the phone the other day for some of the people here in Salem and you know, got vaccinations for them through SUNY Albany. But there's many that will not go anywhere to go get that vaccine. They've been sheltering in place since March. And God forbid, now it's hard to get them out of their house. And we don't want them to go out of their house, but they're not going to go somewhere else to get a vaccine. So I'm hopeful that we can remember that accessibility in the rural communities for vaccines is going to be really, really important. And so hopefully we can encourage that through Hudson Headwater, Glens Falls Hospital, and who else will take up the delivery of them. So thank you, Matt. That's
I agree with you, and thank you. I agree with you, and that accessibility is also tied to, you know, the ability to access the information too. There's a lot of, I mean, I feel that there's going to be a lot of people in our rural parts of our district that aren't getting all of the information that they really need to have to understand. And like I said, that one section of our population that I'm most concerned about are the elderly and people that may not have all of the ability to work with a computer and keep up on all of the press information. And you know, we need to figure that out and make those connections. But I'm a little late for my next meeting, but I want to thank you all, and please reach out to me if there's anything I can do for you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Travel safe. Carol, is that just a wave
Okay.
goodbye or?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, just a good luck at the next meeting. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we'll now move on to committee reports. Chairman Losaw, do you have a report for the audit committee?
I'd like to move the report be accepted for the auditing committee.
We have a motion to accept. Do we have seconds? Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Rozelle, Supervisor Hogan. Any others that I've missed? Okay, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Ward. I think that's all we have. Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Supervisor's privilege of the floor. Do we have anyone that we know would like to talk on the floor? Going once? Going twice? We have no one there, Sandy? Going three? We will now move on to the introduction of the resolutions.
No, we need a motion to set aside the rules for number 18.
I'll motion.
We have a motion from, we have it second by Mr. Henke. The motion was by Supervisor Wilson.
Correct.
Second by Mr. Henke, Supervisor Fedler. Any other seconds? Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration of resolutions.
Resolution number 18 by Supervisor Hall, titled to appoint members to the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board. Resolved that Sue Clary is hereby appointed to the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2023. Resolution number 19 by Supervisors Kelly, Roselle, Campbell, Half, Hicks, Feather, Shaw, Ferguson, Wilson, titled to authorize retention of engineering firm to conduct feasibility study. Resolved that the Washington County Sewer District Number 2 Board of Commissioners is hereby authorized to retain the above referenced firm pursuant to the request for qualification.
Okay.
Resolution number 8 by Supervisor Hall, titled Supervisors Appointed to the Soil and Water Conservation District Board.
I'll move that. Do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Losaw. Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 9 by Supervisor Hall, title Appoint Members of the Intercounty Legislative Committee of the Adirondacks.
I'll move that. Do we have a second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor O'Brien. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Excuse me.
Resolution number 10.
I had discussion, but
Dana's up there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan. I didn't see your hand. Apologize.
is this the Adirondack Park? Or
Adirondack, yes.
Adirondacks in
Yes.
general, or is it the blue line?
It's the Adirondack in general.
It's the counties.
The county ones.
There's 12 counties included in the park, and this is 11 of the 12 counties.
So even though a little bit of Washington County is in the park, we can appoint people that do not live in the park, like Brian, Bob, and Dave.
Correct.
Bob and I have both been chairman of the committee in the past.
And you don't live in the Adirondack Park.
No.
But don't worry, the Adirondack Park had an acting chair from the Catskills too, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay.
Resolution number 10 by Supervisors Skelly, Rozell, Campbell, Half, Hicks, Sedler, Shaw, Ferguson, Wilson, titled to authorize the Washington County Sewer District 2 to take such steps as may be necessary to collect out-of-district user fees.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 10.
Moved by Supervisor Skelly. Are there seconds?
Second.
Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Shaw, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor Henke, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Rozell, and Supervisor Fedler. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 11 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Sedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title amend 2020 budget sewer district number 2.
Moving resolution number 11.
Do we have, moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds are Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any other seconds? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 12 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Sedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title amend 2021 DSS OFA budget for district funds.
Moving resolution number 12.
Okay. And do we have a second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ward. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
All right, hold on. Apologize. Go ahead.
Resolution just to amend the account that the appropriation's coming out of because of the price of them. It's in the non-asset equipment line. So instead of 2020, it's gonna be 4035.
I'll second that amendment. You have a second? You made that, Brian?
Yeah.
Seconded by Matt. Any other seconds? Supervisor Henke? Okay, so you vote on the amendment. There's a discussion on the amendment? All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment's carried. And now we want to read the resolution. We have that moved. Supervisor Campbell? And do we have a second?
It's moved and seconded.
It's moved, we did, okay. All right, let's go on to the next one.
No, we
Apologize.
got
A vote on it.
All right. All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Try this one.
All right. Resolution number 13 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Sedler, Skelly, Clary, Rozell, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title amend budget, capital project number 125, capital improvement plan.
Okay, I'm gonna move resolution of 13, but I'll be coming back with an amendment. This is gonna all come back.
Okay. Do we have a second? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ward. Okay. Is there discussion on the amendment?
So, we're amending the Burgoyne parking lot because initially, it was believed that public health couldn't move because of the pandemic, but it looks like that's gonna move forward as we, do the study. And so therefore, it needs to stay in the project. There was no point in putting it in contingency and taking it back. So I'm gonna remove it from this line and move it to contingency and just leave it in the project. So that's what the amendment is.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Thought I had a second. Dave O'Brien? Bob Henke? Anyone else? Okay. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Supervisor Hicks?
So basically, Brian, you're leaving it back in the capital plan, so that when we discuss the capital plan at some point, we can discuss whether it's the paving of the parking lot and how we're gonna do it and that kind of stuff, instead of just turning it into cash and putting it into contingency. You're keeping it as an item that we can discuss.
We're keeping it funded because in order for public health to go, certain things have to happen. There has to be parking spaces, there has to be a whole lot of things. So the whole thing's gonna come out, it'll all come out in government ops and Dave's committee, and I think Dave's gonna send you out the sheets that'll show all the amount of monies that we're talking about, things that need to happen in the capital plan prior to government ops, so everyone can look it over, review it, have an idea, have questions when it comes to government ops. And from government ops, then it will end up coming back to finance at some point.
It'll be cleaner and straighter to understand, doing
It's cleaner, everybody will have it up front, out in the open, and we'll move on from there. But there was just no point in taking it out of the actual plan when it probably is gonna have to happen in order for the nurses to move there, so it's just being left.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Oh, did I miss somebody?
Yeah.
Dan, where'd you go? Sorry.
It always takes me a second to get this voice on.
That's okay.
I heard about the parking lot, but it wasn't clear. Is it the Burgoyne parking lot or the municipal center parking lot?
It's the Burgoyne.
Okay, good. And should that be clarified as Burgoyne, or was that word in there?
It is in the actual resolution.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And now we're back to the original resolution. Okay. All in favor, signal saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution
Hello?
number 14.
Can we have discussion on the original?
Sure can.
I mean, we're
Okay,
skipping,
Dan, okay.
I mean, we had discussion on the amendment, but I had discussion on the original.
Okay, let's go back.
Brian, can you explain to me, and I ask this quite often, and it's never really explained to me completely. But here's the 2021 budget. And we never see capital projects. This is capital project 125, so I assume there's a lot more than just this one. But it's got to follow budget years, I would think. But in the budget, there's
It doesn't talk about years is the deal. The capital plan is so it doesn't follow budget years because you don't know what year some of these things are going to be done until they move to the top of the priority list that you do them. So this is money set aside so that if you can't get to a project or if something else leaps priority, it gets done. That's where the money's there to do it, and the money gets moved there by resolution into the capital plan or moved out by resolution.
Well, why can't there be something included in this that we all have? Because these capital projects are very mysterious to me. Where they are, how do you see it?
And that's why you're going to get all that from Dave's committee. That whole thing is going to be totally vetted in Dave's committee.
But
The
just,
sheets will be emailed ahead of time.
what other capital projects are there? This is number 125. There's got to be a lot more.
Oh, this is the capital project that we're referring to is just buildings and grounds and DPW. Then there's other capital projects for bridges, roads, things like that.
That's what I want to see. All of those. Do we ever get once a year a
Yeah,
bunch of sheets on it?
Al usually brings them out once a year and goes through all of them.
Al, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to make the capital project reports part of my monthly reports. That's easy enough to do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Very good, thank you. All right, so we already had to vote on that. That was further discussion after. Now we're on to the next one, Deb.
Resolution number 14 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Feather, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Losaw, Ward, Griffith, title authorized agreement with Jaker and Flynn Associates for health insurance brokerage services.
Moving resolution number 14.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, seconds. We have Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Losaw. And I don't believe I missed anyone. Oh, Supervisor Ward. Is there any discussion? Yes, Supervisor Hatt.
This is a little confusing because it says, whereas have been recommended entering into a 2-year contract, but then it talks about 3-year options. Then it talks about a 3-year term. Is it a 2-year contract or a 3-year term?
it's a 2-year contract, and at the end of 2 years, the county will have the option with a resolution to enter into a third year if they wish. But the contract is for 2 years, and then we agreed to talk to them about not just extending it an extra year, but that would require the board to exercise the option by resolution.
Okay, I couldn't figure that out by the wording. Thank you.
You got Melissa.
Melissa?
I'm sorry. Actually, it is supposed to be a 3-year contract with the option to renew it for an additional 3 years, 1 year at a time. Like it does say under the final whereas.
So we need to amend this to a 3-year contract instead of a 2-year contract? Is that where you're at, Melissa?
That's correct. Where it says yes, it's a 3-year contract with the option of an additional 3 years, 1 year at a time, I believe.
I'll make a motion to amend that to 3.
Okay. Do we have a second to the amendment? Dave O'Brien. Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Griffith, I believe his hand was up as well. Okay, Supervisor Ferguson's. Okay, discussion. Melissa, do you have something like that?
If I could, I would like to confirm that quickly because I don't want that to be incorrect.
Sure. Okay. So we can come back in order to do this?
Yeah, we could.
You can table it for now.
Yeah. Can I have a motion to table that, please? Supervisors Campbell, second. Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Hankey, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Bryan, Supervisor Clary. Any discussion on tabling it? All in favor, saying say aye.
Aye.
Carried.
Okay.
Table.
Resolution number 15 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Shelley, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Losell, Ward, Griffith, title to ratify agreement between Washington County and United Public Service Employee Union for years 2021 through 2023.
Moving to who's number 15?
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Do we have seconds? Supervisor Hankey, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Ferguson, and Supervisor Fedler. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor, signal saying aye. It's a roll call, please.
Mr. Hankey,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Losaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hicks,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Haff,
No.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Roselle.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted, 4,094 yes, 166 no. Resolution number 16 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Losell, Ward, Griffith, title to establish reserve technology project.
Moving resolution number 16.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell. Seconds, please. Supervisor Hankey, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Griffith. Is there, Supervisor Fedler, is there any discussion? All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 17 by Supervisors Skelly, Roselle, Campo, Hicks, Sedler, Shaw, Ferguson, Wilson, titled to authorize chairman to sign condemnation petition and necessary documents to obtain property for reconstruction of Shushan Bridge.
Mr. Chairman, I would move resolution number 17, and after we get a second, I need to amend it.
Very good. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Mr. Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Ferguson. I think I got everyone. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to amend the square footage. It needs to be 1,115 square feet and not 175.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Roselle, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Dana, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Dana. Missed you again. Over there, you blend in. Sorry.
Do you not want me to speak, Sam? I already know the answer to that, but I thought
It'd be easy to get you in the middle of the screen.
I thought that this had all changed because now the county is going to consider taking the entire property due to back taxes. And there's no longer going to be condemnation eminent domain. It's going to be forfeiture, or whatever you call when we do the back taxes and take a property.
Mr. Chairman, I can answer it, or maybe Al Nolet can, but it's because this other may take a little time, and Deb wanted to make sure that we had this secured in order to start the construction. So we're starting this avenue, even though we may own it down the road shortly, but maybe Mr. Nolet has more to add.
Al, would you like to add to that?
I think that it's probably smart that we're going down two different paths because there are still ways to stop the county from taking the property through the foreclosure process. So if that process was to fail, you would need the eminent domain as the backup plan.
So we're going to do two bad things, not one. Originally, we were going to have a temporary easement, eminent domain for a temporary thing, not permanent. But if you take the property, that's pretty darn permanent.
Well, Mr. Haff, what I need to remind everybody is we actually foreclosed on this property in 2014. The only reason that we don't have it currently was because of a bankruptcy stay. That stay is now lifted, so the foreclosure action already happened.
Okay, but in committee, it was discussed that the condemnation would be for a temporary easement. I don't see temporary anywhere in this. Was that language changed between subcommittee and here?
That would be from Ms. Donahue.
The condemnation that we're putting forth is for temporary. All the documents have been changed to temporary from committee.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wilson, do you have a question?
No, it was really a statement. Yeah, the dual path is really to necessitate the need to complete the project right away and not get tied to something that could be the other action with foreclosure that could be stretched out over time. And then I think for clarity, my understanding anyway, is the temporary is there, but the only question is, does the pole get removed or do we keep that in place with a guy wire that would be there? That's the only question I had of Deb. Did we resolve the guy wire and the pole?
We moved it to a temporary, so it will go over there as if what Al is doing, and I don't mean what Al is doing, but if we go down that path, then it's probably going to stay there permanently because it's our property then. But if we go the other path, because we are forced to, it will go over there temporary, and then when we're done, we will put it back. So the pole and the guy wire will be there, and at the end of the project, the pole and everything that's on that property will go back to where it was.
And since we're in the process of foreclosure, I guess the cost associated with that temporary is no longer there. So then we just got to ask ourselves, if we do decide, if we get the property, there's a couple of decision points there along the line as to whether or not we're gonna move the pole back or not, correct?
Yes, it would be our ask to leave it there permanently, but we can go down that road later. We're doing it as temporary now.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Hack.
I want to try to follow the money a little bit. A resolution was made to spend almost $17,000 on the easement. I don't think you can go down the path of condemnation for a temporary easement without compensating somebody for that. So I don't think you can say we're going to do a temporary easement and not compensate anybody because the county is going to foreclose upon the property. This is maybe a question for Roger. What happens to the compensation, that $17,000? Are we going to spend it and then foreclose, or are we not going to spend it and do an easement without compensation?
I think you're talking about either or situation, in personally to the discussions I've been a part of, which is we're going to get to a decision point about going forward to construct the bridge, and I'll let Deb weigh in as to when that is. But when we get to that decision point of, all right, we need to move that pole in order for this project to go forward, we may have two alternatives or we may have one alternative. If that one alternative is to condemn the property temporarily or permanently, there would have to be compensation given for either one of those situations. If the choice was to foreclose on the property, which, and both of these could have happened before. In other words, if the foreclosure gets knocked off the menu, so to speak, then you will have only the choice of condemnation left. The price would be paid to the landowner. The land would be taken through condemnation, and we proceed. If we got to the point where we still had foreclosure on the menu, then we could choose foreclosure. No price would be paid in that case. We would just take the property because the taxes weren't paid. I think the concern is that it may happen within the next month or so before another meeting is here, and they want to have both of those alternatives on the table so that they can pick the one that allows the project to proceed in an expeditious fashion.
But Roger, ultimately, you may do both things, correct? You may do the condemnation, pay out compensation, and then after that, foreclose.
Well, I would say eventually at some point we're going to foreclose on that property unless somebody shows up with a sack of cash before we foreclose on it.
Okay, I have one more question for Al. I'll let somebody step in if they want, but I want to come back.
Can I just say that as soon as the process to foreclose is put through, the condemnation instantly stops. Does that help?
Right, because we wouldn't have to.
Yep.
We wouldn't have to condemn our own property.
Right.
But there's always the possibility that somebody, because what we do in every case we do this in, where things are stopped with bankruptcy, we send a notice to the property owner, and we say to them, you're out of bankruptcy, you better show up or else we're going to foreclose. There's always a possibility that person shows up and pays the taxes, which is, I would think, a good thing. So then your only alternative at that point would be the condemnation, which is why I believe, after the discussions that have been had, we want to keep that on the table. But, you know, I'm not giving you odds on any of that happening. I'm just saying that that's a possibility.
Supervisor Hicks?
Yeah, the two alternatives are we take it and foreclose on it, and this is clean and it's over and we own it and it's done. Or if we have to get the temporary easement, it would be because the current person in the chain of title has come and taken the property back by paying us $300,000 in back taxes. If he wants to come pay us $300,000 and we have to pay him $17,000 for a easement, I'll do that all week long. No problem there. Then he can keep the property. We'll keep the $283,000. We'll get the bridge built. We'll all live together. But we need to have both those options going forward. So Al's option of foreclosure is the preferable and cleanest one, if that helps.
Supervisor Roselle?
Al, didn't you state that we already foreclosed on that property?
So there's two steps in the foreclosure process, Mr. Roselle. There's the actual court foreclosure, and then where I actually go down to the county clerk and file the deed. So I have the foreclosure document. The last step remaining is me going down to the county clerk and filing the deed in the county's name. I do give the landowner gets sent a certified letter with a 30-day notice of my intent to proceed to file that deed. That's where we are.
Supervisor Campbell.
So just a reminder, why we're even here discussing this is we have a bridge that has been flagged before. We fixed it a few times. It may end up need fixing again before all this can happen if this goes through the court system. So the whole idea is to avoid all those costs, which would be better for the taxpayers in general, and maybe make a public safety issue at the same time. So that's really the reason of doing this way in times of the essence, because we just do not get it flagged again, because anything we have to fix is a bill on top of still replacing a bridge, and that's a problem.
Is there any, yes, Supervisor Haff?
Matt said that they owe $300,000. A lot of times, if you owe something to the IRS, you owe $10,000. By the time they put the interest and penalties, you owe $1 million. Now, this interest is 1% per month. This could have been 10 years. Is there 120% interest on top of the original principal? How much is the principal? How much is the interest that equals $300,000?
Al, do you have the answer for that?
That the number that Matt threw out is for all 7 of this taxpayer's properties. This property specifically owes 117.
But what is the principal they owe without all the interest and penalty? Because I almost think the interest and penalties probably more than the original bill. So Matt says if he comes in and pays $300,000, but if you put interest and penalties, nobody can pay. That's the problem with the system.
No, the 117,000 that's due is with the interest and penalties.
What is it without?
I'd have to look it up for you. Hey, stand by.
With all due respect, Dana, what difference does it make? We treat all of the taxpayers equally. If we charge interest and penalties to other taxpayers, we charge interest and penalties to this taxpayer.
That makes us the beast.
So be it.
Supervisor Clary.
Now, what stage, did I miss this? What stage is the letter? Is it on day number 10, day number 20, or when did you send out the letter?
The certified letter is postmarked the 11th.
January 11th, okay. Quite frankly, Dana, these properties have been unused for many, many years, seven parcels. And it's almost like the town of Salem is held hostage with the vacancies of these buildings.
But the original person didn't pay, went bankrupt, died. Maybe he was in ill health. His wife died. You're trying to get money from dead people, and I would almost bet the interest and penalties are more than the principal. So at some point, government makes it impossible for people to get out of debt because you want your interest and penalty. All right, let's move on.
We continue to have this conversation every year since I've been here. The fact of the matter is, when somebody doesn't pay their taxes, the rest of the taxpayers in the county have to come forward and make that up to the towns and the schools and whatever else. The interest and penalties is paying back the rest of the taxpayers for the money we've taken out of their pocket to pay this guy's taxes when he didn't pay it. There's an element of fairness there, and I think this is trying to demonize government for this. I think what we're doing is protecting the rest of the taxpayers. If there wasn't interest and penalties, the rest of the taxpayers that do pay their taxes would take an awful whack.
Okay. Supervisor Clary?
Dana, I can appreciate what you're saying. I do know what you're talking about, and unfortunately, sometimes people don't get the help when they need the help, which probably would have, in this case, would have been about 10 years ago. And I feel bad because I know how this has all occurred, but I know that it's not getting better. It's only getting worse, and it's holding everybody. I mean, the town of Shushan would love to be able to have business, and if that bridge is flagged, it's going to be a very difficult road for them, and also the farmers and everyone around Jackson. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. We do need to provide better services to people in financial crisis. And, that's an issue. That's certainly an issue in this country right now. So,
Okay. Haven't had the discussion. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carried. And now back up to the original resolution. Discussion on the original? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Carried.
Resolution number 18 by Supervisor Hall, titled to appoint member to the Lake Champlain Lake George Regional Planning Board.
I will move that. Seconds, please. Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Hicks, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor, signal saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 19 by Supervisor Skelly, Roselle, Campbell, Half, Hicks, Fedler, Shaw, Ferguson, Wilson, titled to authorize retention of engineering firm to conduct feasibility studies.
Mr. Chairman, I move Resolution 19.
Moved by Supervisor Skelly. Seconds, please. Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Losaw, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Campbell. I believe that's it. Is there any discussion? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. If we could go back, we can go back to 14 that was tabled. We can do that today, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Melissa sent a chat.
Yes, sir. I need a motion to take it off the table, if we could, please. Okay, got a move by Supervisor Campbell, seconds. Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor O'Brien. Okay.
So I will remove my amendment because she said resolution 14 is written correctly as is.
Okay. So the amendment's been removed.
Probably what the second.
Yep, Matt seconded it, I believe. Or was that a question, Matt?
I just say everybody that seconded it, do they agree?
Yeah. Any difference on the ones that seconded it? All in agreement? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So now we're back to the original. Okay. Can we read the original one more time, Deb, please, so they know what it is?
Resolution number 14 by Supervisors Campbell, O'Brien, Hicks, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Wilsall, Ward, Griffith, titled to authorize agreement with Jaeger and Flynn Associates for health insurance brokerage services.
Okay, we tabled that, so we need a motion to bring it out. We brought it out. Motion to move it. By Brian, do we have any seconds? Supervisor Henke, Supervisor Fedler, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor O'Brien, Supervisor Ward, Supervisor Ferguson, Supervisor Clary, Supervisor Griffith. Is there any discussion? Matt?
So Roger, I read it as a 2-year contract.
Correct.
At the end of that 2-year contract is a 3-year option. And that 3-year option allows 1 3-year period option or 3 1-year period options.
Correct. So at the end, you can say, let's go 3 more years, or let's go a year, and then at the end of that, let's go a
You
year.
revisited this in 2 years.
Correct. The first one was 2.
Gotcha.
This one was 2 for the first rate.
Oh, I understand.
There's a lot of 2s and 3s, but it's 1, 2, and then.
5 is the most it can be.
Correct.
Anywhere between 2 and 5.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. At this point in time, now we consider resolutions. I had a request to go into executive session.
I'd like to make a request, Mr. Chairman, to go into executive session, to discuss, employment
Of a particular person.
of a particular person.
Good. Do we have a second to that?
Or person and contract negotiation.
Mr. Chairman, I believe there's also that second issue about matters leading to the retention of a particular firm or appointment of a particular firm as well.
Okay.
So it would be if we're going to consider both those issues.
Both of those, please.
It would be for both of those firms.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Also, we had Supervisor Hanky, Supervisor Fedler. Anybody else that wanted to second that? Supervisor Clary? Okay, we will now move into, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will now move into executive session.